we're going to go ahead and we're going to take a look at multiplying using the area model. We're actually going to do this lesson 2 times. We're first going to focus on using the area model, and then second we're going to focus on using the distributive property. So you'll see 2.5 2 times. Just know that there are 2 different ways that we can work these problems out. For this lesson, you're really going to have to make sure that you have a sheet of paper in front of you and a pencil. I want you working these problems out with me as we go. The first few, you could even have a piece of graph paper out in front of you if you have one. Let's take a look at the first problem we're going to solve. We are going to solve 3 times 12. Now the first thing that I want you to do is draw a rectangle on your piece of paper. Now since I am using graph paper, I drew my rectangle to be 3 down, 1, 2, 3 down, and 12 across, because that represents 3 times 12. If you don't have a piece of graph paper around, just use a sheet of lined paper and draw a rectangle. Does not have to be perfect. We're just using our rectangle as a representation of what we're doing. Now, if we were to go and look at a rectangle and count up all of those little squares inside of that rectangle, because we're using graph paper, we would find out what our product of 3 times 12 is. But we're not going to do that. We're going to use the math strategies instead. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to take our number 12 and we're going to expand it. If we were to write 12 in expanded form, it would equal 10 plus 2. Now this is really helpful for us, and this is really important because this is going to allow us to split our rectangle into pieces and make this problem easier for us to solve. Now, some of you might be saying, well, I know what 3 times 12 is. That's not the point. We want to understand the premise of how to use this model. So what we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to take our 3, because it's already broken up. There's only one place value we have to worry about, our ones place, and we're going to place our 3 on one side of our rectangle. Then we need to split our other side of our rectangle. We need to split the length of our rectangle into 2 pieces because there are 2 place values in our number 12. And we split our number already in expanded form into 10 plus 2. So I'm going to go ahead, and if I count 10 rectangles down, or 10 squares down, there's my split. And I'm going to label these pieces. I'm going to label this part 10, and I'm going to label this part 2. Please make sure we have this on your paper. Again, if you need to pause the video at any time so you can make sure you draw this, please do so. Now, our next step is to write the multiplication problems that we have for each of those pieces of our rectangle. When we're doing this, we're multiplying our length times our width of each separate piece of our rectangle. So, for this side, we're going to be multiplying 3 times 10. And we're going to do the same thing here. We're going to multiply our length times our width, 3 times 2. Now when we multiply 3 times 10, that gives us a product of 30. And 3 times 2 gives us a product of 6. Now all I have to do is add those 2 pieces together, 30 plus 6, and I get my answer of 36. This is called the area model. I'm taking a rectangle, I'm taking my larger number and distributing it into multiple pieces depending on how many place values I'm dealing with. In this case, only 2. I'm going to multiply my side by my other length, my length times my width of each of those pieces of my rectangle, and then add them all together. So I get 36 as my product. Make sure we have this written down, and then let's take a look at another problem. Here we have 5 times 13. This problem's a little bit bigger, so this is one that we might actually use the area model for. We're going to start by drawing a rectangle for this problem. And because I have grid paper in front of me, I'm going to draw my rectangle 5 tall by 13 long. Now that I have my rectangle, my first step is going to be to expand my number 13. My number 5, I don't need to expand that. There's only one place value there. But I'm going to expand my number 13. So off to the side, 13 would be equal to 10 plus 3. And the reason I'm writing this off to the side is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start labeling my rectangle next. Again, make sure that you're drawing this in your notebook with me. All right, so I am going to label the side of my rectangle, that's 5 squares. I'm going to label that 5. Then I'm going to split my larger piece of my rectangle. I'm going to split that into 10 and 3. And I'm going to split that into 10 and 3 because that's what I just expanded my number into. My number 13, if I took 10 plus 3, that would give me 13. 10 plus 3 is the expanded form of 13. Now I'm going to label my parts. This part up here is going to be 10, and the other part is going to be 3. That's 10 squares, and the smaller part is 3 squares. Now I'm going to write the multiplication problems I'm going to solve for each of those smaller rectangles. When I find the area, I'm multiplying one number times another. I'm multiplying my length times my width. So I'm going to be finding the area of each of these smaller rectangles. I'm going to multiply 5 times 10 to find the area of this rectangle. And I'm going to multiply 5 times 3 to find the area of that smaller rectangle. When I multiply 5 times 10, I get 50. And when I multiply 5 times 3, I get 15. All I need to do to figure out what 5 times 13 is, which is my initial problem that I'm starting with, is go ahead and add those two partial products up. A product is the answer to a multiplication problem. And because I didn't multiply the whole piece of 5 times 13 all at once, I got a part of it. So these are called partial products. So I'm going to take 50 and add my 15 more. And when I do that, I get a total of 65. And so 65 is the answer to this multiplication problem. 5 times 13 is equal to 65. And I found 65 by expanding my number 13 into 10 and 3. I then labeled my rectangle. 5 was my height, 10 and 3 were my width. I found the area of each individual rectangle. I multiplied 5 times 10, 5 times 3, and then I added the partial products up. Let's go ahead and try another problem. Now, as our numbers get bigger, it isn't practical for us to use graph paper for all of these problems. When we get up to 24, 34, 100, 300 something, 500 something, it's not going to be practical for us to draw a rectangle that's 500 squares. So we're going to start by just drawing a rectangle for this problem, and it doesn't have to be exactly that many squares high or that many squares wide. We're just going to draw a rectangle, and we can still label it even though we don't see all those little squares. So here's my rectangle, and my first step again is going to be to take my number 24, and I'm going to pull it off to the side, and I'm going to expand my number 24. Expanded form would give me 20 plus 4. Now I'm going to label my rectangle. My height is 7. My smaller part of my rectangle is going to be 7. I'm going to split my other piece of my rectangle, and I'm just going to draw a line. Again, it doesn't have to be perfect. This area model is just for us to help us visualize what we're doing, what we're breaking these numbers apart. So I'm going to label these parts. I have 20. That's 24 broken up, so 20, and then my remaining piece is 4. Now, I'm going to write my multiplication facts for those different areas inside of the box. So this is 7 times 20, 7 times 20. And this piece over here is going to be 7 times 4, 7 times 4. When I multiply 7 times 20, I get 140. 7 times 4 is 28. And my last step is going to be to add those up, my partial products, my pieces that I get from multiplying after I've expanded my larger number. 140 plus 28 is going to give me a total of 168, and that is my final product. That's the answer to this question. 7 times 24 is equal to 168. I expanded my number 24, I drew my rectangle, I found my partial products, and then I added them together. Let's go ahead. I'm going to have you do this next one first, and then we're going to check your work. Our next problem, we've gotten even bigger. This one is 9 times 37. Go ahead and give this problem a shot. On your notebook, I want you to draw your rectangle, split your rectangle, then you're going to expand your number 37, label your parts, find your partial products, and add them together. All right. Let's see how you did. I'm just drew my rectangle. Now I'm going to expand my number 37 into 30 plus 7. And I'm going to label my parts of my rectangle. My height is going to be 9. And I'm going to split my other part into 30 and 7. Now I'm going to label the inside of my rectangles. 9 times 30. And 9 times 7. And I'm going to find my partial products, my pieces, my smaller pieces to this multiplication problem. 9 times 30 is 270. 9 times 7 is 63. All I have left to do is add those two pieces together. I have 270 plus 63. I'm going to go ahead and add. I'm going to get 3 in my ones place. I'm going to get a 3 in my tens place. And I'm going to get a 3 in my hundreds place. So my answer is 333. So again, we found our partial products by multiplying 9 times 30, then we multiplied 9 times 7, and all we had to do was add those pieces together. Pretty easy. Let's give a bigger problem a shot. Go ahead and try this problem. 7 times 68. Draw your rectangle, expand 68, label your parts of your rectangles, find your partial products, and then add them together to find your final product. So here I've drawn my rectangle, and off to the side I've expanded 68 into 60 plus 8, and I'm going to go ahead and label my rectangle. I have 7, which is my height, and then I'm going to split my rectangle into 60 and 8. And I'm going to write my multiplication problems inside my rectangle. So I have 7 times 60, and then I have 7 times 8. And I'm going to multiply to find my partial products. 7 times 60 is going to be 420. 7 times 8 is 56. And now all I have to do is add up my partial products. 420 plus 56 is going to give me 476. That is my final product. That is the answer to 7 times 68. I hope you did pretty well on that one. We expanded our number 68. We labeled our rectangle. We split our rectangle into two pieces. We found our partial products of 420 and 56, and then we added them together. Let's go ahead and look at a few more problems. Here is 9 times 57. I want you to give this one a shot. Draw your rectangle, expand 57 out, label your parts of your rectangle, find your partial products, add them together, and find your product. So I went ahead and I split my number 57 into 50 plus 7, and now I'm going to label my rectangle. I have 9, and now I'm going to split my rectangle into 50 and 7, and I'm going to write my multiplication problems in. 9 times 50, 9 times 7, 9 times 50 is equal to 450, 9 times 7 is equal to 63, and all I have left to do is add my pieces together, my partial products. 450 plus 63 is going to give me 513. That is my final product to 9 times 57. Check that product out. Check your partial products. Make sure you got the same partial products that I did in the same final product. And let's do another one. We're going to get even bigger with this next problem. We're going to multiply 8 times 87. 8 times 87. The same principles apply for this problem, even though our numbers are bigger. We are going to draw our rectangle, take 87 and expand it out. Then we are going to label the parts of our rectangle, write those multiplication problems inside all those parts, find your partial products, and then add your partial products together to find your product. Give this one a shot. I drew my rectangle. When I expand 87, I get 80 plus 7, so that's what I need to label my rectangle with. I'm going to start by labeling my side 8, and then I'm going to split my rectangle into 80 and 7, and I'm going to write my multiplication problems inside. 8 times 80, and my other multiplication problem is going to be 8 times 7. Now I need to find my partial product, so I need to multiply. 8 times 80 is going to be 640. 8 times 7 is 56. And my last step is to add my partial products. 640 plus 56. When I do that, I'm going to get 696 as my product. There we go. 8 times 87 is 696. Okay, that's all there is for today's lesson. We talked about using the area model to multiply. I first need to expand my number out. Then I need to draw my rectangle, break my rectangle into pieces, find my partial products, add those partial products together, and I get my product. Tomorrow we're going to take a look at using the distributive property, which is very similar to what we did here, except without our area model, to help us multiply.